it's about noticing, and when you start noticing, you'll be amazed at what you see in yourself. You'll start to realize just how much stuff is going on inside of this head of ours. And it isn't because we want to try and stop it. It's not an effort to try and stop it. It's not an effort to try and quiet our minds by stopping doing this. It's simply, if you notice it, you will naturally stop because you'll realize how useless it is. And it will just slowly over time get less and less and less until you could walk down the street and have no reaction to anything and just feel just the energy and joy of what's going on around you and not be overtaken by, pulled in all these little different directions. And to me, that's very useful. That's a different way of living. It's a different way of looking at things. And when we learn how to do that with the small things, which is easy because easier than when we try to apply it to larger, more things that are more difficult to understand, it'll allow us to not be so affected by larger world-based events or community-based events or whatever. It's like learning how to use a new set of tools that then you could apply to any situation. Trying to present it with different words so that we might lose that catch-all phrase of mindfulness. I mean, for me, sometimes it invokes some of the old sayings like, mind what you do as a negative, or, so with some people that might actually have a negative connotation of being mindful, meaning, you need to control yourself, you need to make sure you do the things you should do, and that's not what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness has no emotional or judgmental characteristic to it. It's using your mind to observe what you're doing. Noticing, that's really what it is. It's just noticing. Noticing is a neutral word. It doesn't mean, I could say, well, you should watch yourself. Well, that can have a negative connotation. You should be aware of what you're doing. Again, sometimes that will have, with some people, a negative connotation. But notice, to me, is neutral. It's like, did you notice something? It's like, yeah, I did, I had no reaction to it. I just noticed, So notice to me is a real light word. It's a way of putting it that doesn't immediately invoke any kind of judgment or any kind of shoulds or shouldn'ts on top of what you're doing. Because if you do that, it's useless. It has no purpose at all. All you'll do is you'll do more of what you already do, which is judge yourself for what you think, do, and say. I would love to know where that came from. Where that sort of filtered into our lives. I mean, I know the answer, but I mean more sort of philosophically, why have we been sort of instructed since we were little to be judgmental of what we do, say, and think? It's a travesty, really, because there's no basis for it. I think one of the things about becoming more aware of yourself and more and taking ownership of your own personal life and existence is dropping all the judgments of what you should or shouldn't do based on what you've heard or other people have told you, and looking deep inside yourself and saying, well, who am I and who do I want to be, regardless of what everybody else says? That's a huge leap of faith. It's a big thing to do, because we all have this whole mountain of preconceived ideas that have been given to us by other people and family and community and friends about what shouldn't and shouldn't be. And very few of us in this life actually ask ourselves, well, well, who do I really want to be? Who am I? Not who am I in the sense of not on a spiritual level so much, more just like, who am I? What do I believe? What do I think? What do I feel right with? What do I, if there were no one to tell me otherwise, how would I act and be? And who would, what would I want to think about? Where would I want to explore? I mean, of course, most people, alarm bells would be going off when you start asking yourselves those questions. It's like, oh no, where's that going to take me? Where might I end up then? But that's sort of that fear-based idea of control that it's very subtle. It's not purposeful. It's just part of who and what we are as humans, I think, of we feel like we have to live within a certain set of norms that will keep everybody cooperating. When in fact it doesn't. It actually suppresses so much individuality that it drives people crazy, literally crazy, to do things that they shouldn't do, that are not useful for living in community, as it were. So noticing is simply looking at what's going on, what's happening, what's arising as you're doing it, and wondering, like with a sense of wonder, it's wondering, where did it come from? Do I really think that? Do I want to do that? It doesn't mean you don't do that. It's not about identifying the things that you do that you don't want, you wish you didn't have to do, and saying, well, I'm going to do the opposite because that's going to prove to myself that I'm such and such. It isn't. That's a judgment. It's just simply paying attention to what's going on in the background, so that we can ask ourselves whether or not we want to be that way. To whatever degree that we cannot be that way, that's still acceptable within the realm of our lives. Each one of us has a life that is totally unique from everyone else. There's the sets of circumstances, the things that we have to attend to, the things we're responsible for. Those are all given to us as we live this life. And that's kind of the gift of the universe to us is, and some people may not think of it as a gift, but honestly, I really do think it is, whether we think it's good or bad. It's what we're given. And if we spend our entire lives running away from that, that's all we're doing. It's kind of like when two people get together and they get married, and then 3 years later they decide, this isn't working out. I'm going to go find someone else who I'll be happier with. And then they go off and they go off and they go off, and it's like some people spend their entire lives running away from what it is that's been presented to them to live, instead of saying, I'm going to own what I have because this is what I've been given, and I'm going to work with that, and I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to create a consistency or a continuation of what it is that I've been given to work with. And I think that's where people have the best chance of being at ease with their life situation, even if it's full of things that are just not so great. But to take it and own it and say, this is it. The person next to me doesn't have these challenges, but I do.